Okay, here's the premise of today's video. I have a big rusty wrench. This wrench came from a friend of mine at Hoarder's warehouse. He's basically a picker that finds real cool stuff. And he found me a wrench this big. I mean, this is big. I got a big head. This is a big wrench. So, what we're going to do today is, since I have a very large rusty wrench, we're going to take this plexiglass box that took me way too long to make, and we're going to do two different types of rust removal. The classic is just brute force, just sanding it, all that good stuff. You can also go through and sand blast it. I don't have a blast cabinet, and I'm way too lazy to sand the whole thing. So, we're going to try two different versions of rust removal. The first method we're going to try, Evapo-Rust. This is the one that you see on all the various DIY YouTubers. They all love it, and so I'm going to give it a shot. I've learned a lot of stuff about it recently that it is, let me read you the actual stuff from it because it's kind of amazing. Non-toxic, biodegradable, safe on skin and eyes, and reusable. Those are all pretty big deals because most of the time when something's this harsh, like this tough of a thing, it's not fun to work with. This, see people all the time dipping their arms in, getting parts out and stuff. And the fact that it's reusable is awesome. It's not a single-use item, so you can just keep using it over and over until it just gives up altogether. But yeah, so we're going to try some Evapo-Rust. We're going to see how that works. We're going to do a 5-hour time period on it. I'm going to let this soak for 5 hours. I'm going to do nothing else. I basically dusted it off with a brush, hit it with a little bit of shop air. That's it. There's no other rust removal on it. And since this is pretty consistently rusted from top to bottom, we're going to do half the wrench. I'm going to put half the wrench in here, put Evapo-Rust in it, and we're going to see how it works. In 5 hours, we'll take it out and test it. Then my next version of rust removal is electric rust removal. This is something you see very commonly. It's water up to wherever, baking soda, and basically a car battery charger. 12 volts, that's all you need. And it pulls the rust off via electrolysis, and it works pretty well also. So I'm really curious to see in a 5-hour time frame which one works better. And this, I have no idea what to expect. So we're going to find out. Let's get to it. Okay, so that's been 5 hours. Now we're going to take this out of here, give it a real light wire brushing, just knock off the excess, and see how it did. And it's perfect timing too, because the Evapo-Rust and my little glue job here didn't work out so well right at the end here. I'm just starting to drip, so perfect timing. Big plus of Evapo-Rust, reusable. So I can take it out of here and put it right back in the container. Get this unhooked. Okay. Set this off to the side for the moment. And we'll give it a quick little wire brushing, see how it did. coming right off. And remember, this test is just to find out how well the product does on its own. Not with a whole lot of elbow grease on top of it, just basically the product. So, we're going to see if this works better, or if electrocuted, or the electrolysis, whatever you want to call it, rust removal works better. So we'll find out. Okay, wipe down here. It definitely made a dent. I wouldn't call this clean after 5 hours, but I would definitely say we're on our way to clean. It did a pretty impressive job for rust that is a lot of years old. I'm guessing this thing probably started rusting maybe in the 50s or 60s and has been doing its thing since then. So if it's busting through that with only 5 hours worth of sitting, that's pretty solid. Okay, I'll let that dry out overnight, and tomorrow I'm going to come back. We're going to try the electric version. See what we got. Okay, we're on to day 2 of our test here. Same wrench, flip the other direction. Got the Evapo-Rust part up top. We're going to try electrolysis today. Electrolysis, as far as rust removal, consists of regular tap water, baking soda. You can use a couple different types of things, but sodium bicarbonate is the thing you're looking for. Basically, it just makes the water more conductive. Once you got this in here, take a battery charger, regular standard 12-volt battery charger. You hook the negative side to the item you're working on, and then the positive side goes to a piece of sacrificial metal. This metal basically is going to be the recipient of the rust and of the bad news. Dip that in your water also. And this is making essentially a circuit through the water, pulling the rust out. Sodium bicarbonate. Got a good amount in there. It's something you can't necessarily overdo, but from what I gather, about a half a cup per 5 gallons, so that's probably plenty in there. Give it a nice stir with my superficial stir stick. Kind of get it throughout the water. You want it to do as best possible as make all the water conductive, super conductive, basically. So get it all mixed in there. Okay, once it's mixed in, battery charger. Set it on a low amperage, so whatever the lowest amperage is, it'll do basically. Hit start. We're going to set this for 5 hours. And immediately it starts bubbling. What this is basically doing is separating the hydrogen and oxygen from the water, pulling them apart into separate bits, so you're getting hydrogen and oxygen bubbles floating out of the top of here. Keep in mind, hydrogen and oxygen, both flammable. Keep this away from a fire or you might have some funky not goodness. But you can see it immediately starts bubbling pretty hard, and this essentially kind of works the rust off. So we're going to see how well that works. Same test, 5 hours. That's it, 5 hours. Might work great, might work not great, 5 hours. We'll check back with you. Okay, we're going to do a little cleanup here. After 5 hours of sitting electrolysis, bubbled, got all kinds of gooey, a little bit overflowed out of my container here. Mental note, hot glue does not work real great. Cover up seams there. Anyway, it seems to have done the job, so let's give it a shot and find out. And yes, it's super gross. And mind you, this is, once again, a 5-hour test. This is not the definitive test of what these chemicals can do over a long period of time. This is just over a short amount of time, what can we accomplish? That soupy mess is disgusting. Set that down on the ground just in case some bad mojo happens there. Okay. And we'll clean up a little bit of the spillover here. And let's see what we can do. Once again, light brushing, nothing super amazing, just knocking off any loose rust. The one downside is the water started to drip out evidently. It moved lower and lower on the items, so I think there'll be 3 distinct lines, one from the evapa-rust, one from the electrolysis, and one from where it kind of sat in the middle. The coloration of it is definitely different. Once again, I'm not sure if it's better or equal, but the coloration is definitely different. So based on the fact that this is still wet somewhat, we'll let this dry out before we give a final result. But seems to be an interesting little combo there. I'll clean up, we'll let this dry, and we'll find out. Okay, after a couple days, let everything sit and dry out, getting through life and getting back to this project. This gooey stuff, which I wouldn't drink by any stretch of imagination, is the remnants of the electric rust removal. The whole thing had a way more visual reaction, lots and lots and lots of bubbles. I was running my charger at a 2 amp load, which I've heard everything from a 1/4 amp on up pretty much works, but pretty much whatever the kind of lowest your battery charger will do should be enough. It doesn't take much. So 2 amp load, let it run for 5 hours, just like I let the evapa-rust side run. Bubbled the whole time. The way that what that's actually doing is it's creating, separating the hydrogen and oxygen, and essentially using the bubbles to pull the rust off. It's a thing, it works. It makes me also curious if carbonated water would do the same thing, because carbonated water also is usable bubbles. So I'm curious about that for a further test. But for today, the head-to-head, here's what I got. There's no definitive, this is the answer winner. And over a longer test, like a 24-hour, 48-hour, or God forbid a week long or something like that, one might be the very clear, undisputed winner that takes off every little possible particle of rust ever. But in a 5-hour time span, assuming you don't have forever to wait for something like this, really, they both did a good job. I would say the evapa-rust actually did a better job. I wouldn't say it did it 100% better, but I would say it did it better. And it's literally put it in a bucket and walk away from it. There's not much to it. If you don't have evapa-rust, you don't have access to evapa-rust or anything like that, this worked great. I mean, I'm real pleased with the way it worked. It knocked off the majority of the outside rust. It seems to have re-rusted faster, which is interesting to me, that it wasn't so much that this is leftover original rust, because it looked actually a lot better when it was fresh pulled out. This is 2 days later and it seems to have re-rusted already, whereas the evapa-rust side pretty much looks like when I pulled it out. So that makes me curious if it soaks in a little bit more and gives a little bit more resilience to rust in the future. Don't know if it does, that's just kind of my hypothesis on this. But both of them took off the surface rust really, really well. in a real minimal amount of time, so I don't think it's going to take me a whole lot of effort to get this one finished up. Like I said, I don't have a sandblast or anything like that, so every bit of rust removal I do is a very manual process. So anything I can find to help it go faster, I'm all for it. And it seems like for future projects of mine, I'll be using the Evapo-Rust. It just seems to get the job done. Really, really easy to do. I'm gonna get a 5-gallon bucket and basically just kind of leave it in there, and when I got something I need to clean out, I'll clean it out. Real easy. But it was really, really simple. Just pour it in and let it do its thing. The electric rust, if that is an option that you have instead of buying the Evapo-Rust, I 100% recommend that one also. It's something that if you've got the battery charger laying around and you've got a bucket that you can do it in with a piece of sacrificial metal, things like that, awesome. It worked just fine. This is something that I bet if I had oiled it right away, it would have ended up differently. But as it by itself, this one re-rusted faster than this side did. So that's the only thing that I've got as far as one necessarily working better than the other. They both seem to have done roughly the same job in rust removal. I think the Evapo-Rust might have gotten a little bit better. Not a ton, but a little bit better. I mean, noticeably better, but not a ton. But either one really does work. They're both pretty much as good as advertised. So just some baking soda and water with 12-volt negative lead on the metal you're using, positive lead on the sacrificial piece. It basically will bubble that up and pull the rust off. If you've got access to Evapo-Rust, get some Evapo-Rust. It's not crazy expensive, and it's, as far as I can tell, pretty much infinitely reusable. So just put a couple gallons in a 5-gallon bucket, put a lid on it, leave it there. Just so you can use it whenever you need it. Either one gets the project done. So as far as for my money, I'm going to buy another gallon of Evapo-Rust, put it in a 5-gallon bucket, and I'll be good to go. I don't do a whole ton of restoration or like that, but it's just really handy to have. Got a rusty car part that you're fixing or something, that'll knock it out. So yeah, so it's, even though there's no super huge dramatic conclusion, we figured it out. It's I would put the preference towards Evapo-Rust. That would be my recommendation. This also is available on like Home Depot and Amazon and all that good stuff. I'll throw a link in the video for a video description if you want to buy some on Amazon. Short of that, either one works. This one to me was a little bit easier and seemed to get a little bit better job done. Okay, well thank you very much for watching. I really, really appreciate you. Don't forget, if you liked a video like this, feel free to comment and tell us you liked it. Tell us you want to see more things like this, or if you want to see less things like this, if you hated it, whichever. Don't forget to give us a like, a little thumbs up in the bottom right. Yeah, bottom right. Subscribe to the channel. We make videos. Hopefully we'll get back to making them more and more. Got several videos that seem to be doing pretty well, and we appreciate you watch those too. And if you want to see more stuff, hopefully we got some soon on the way. So don't forget, like, subscribe. We appreciate you. Thank you, everybody.